be like some new planet that we've never seen before or whatever. But what's unfortunate is that it's at Disneyland and not California Adventure, because the difference is California Adventure you can get liquor and Disneyland has no booze whatsoever. The missed opportunity is if it was at California Adventure and they could have, you know, the bar, if they could
cantina,
have
but yeah,
the cantina, you would be able to go and be like, can I get an utini?
Oh, an utini.
Served by a Jawa.
It would come in a special Jawa cup with red eyes.
And you have to say it like that to get it, to actually get the order to be completed.
Yeah, I feel like it's like in a mug with like red eyes.
Yeah.
And then the little button on the side that goes, "Oh, TV!"
It's like a stein, so you have to pull the lever to open up the top of the Jawa hood.
Yeah, it's got
to be able to drink it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And yeah, it comes in the signature glass. You can pay to keep it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You know, speaking of,
I have a freaking butter beer mug from Universal Studios.
I don't know what butter is,
and to be clear, it's not that the reason I have never been to Disneyland is not because I don't like theme parks or anything. I loved Harry Potter.
Yeah, that's maybe why I thought you always went, because I see, you know, your snaps sometimes you'll go to Universal and stuff like that.
I grew up going to Six Flags over Mid-America.
I feel like between the suction cup story and the allowance money story, I know you guys on a level that I didn't know you before.
Yeah. That's why we do these pre-shows.
Now you know.
The ones that aren't live.
All right. Let's get rolling here.
Oh, we're going to podcast?
Well, yeah, we are. We're going to podcast like there's no tomorrow. Well, there is no podcast.
1999.
There's actually a date.
Actually, we are, funnily enough, given the subject matter, we are going to podcast like it's 1999.
A little bit. At the very latest, 2005.
Well, it was pretty dead by then, but yes.
Yeah. All right, here we go. Daily Tech News Show is powered by its audience, not outside organizations. To find out more, head to dailytechnewsshow.com/support. This is the Daily Tech News for Friday, December 16th, 2016. I'm Tom Merritt. Darren Kitchen in the house today. Darren just found out there's a new Star Wars movie. Are you excited?
I am. Hey, you way to throw me under a bus. But no, wow, not under a bus, under a rock. That rock is supposed to.
I pulled you out from under a rock.
Right. I need to tweak my rock filters, because it's really just supposed to keep, like, you know, police brutality out of my life, and it's unfortunately caught something significant.
Yeah. Well, every once in a while you got to fine tune those filters. This is how you learn, for sure. Machine learn, perhaps.
Well, hey, speaking of which, the machine learning is a very difficult thing to curate, because you need humans to be in the mix. So if the human isn't seeing the input and output, then it can't tweak what that end result will be. You can't let machines teach machines, because they're not going to come out with anything good.
I mean, really, that is the perfect setup for our first top story, but we have to introduce Len Peralta. Yeah. Len Peralta is like a machine.
I am like a machine. I am a nonstop drawing machine. On Fridays, at least.
Len, have you seen the new Star Wars yet?
I have not. You know, I think I was going to see it this weekend, but I might actually wait till after Christmas when my other son gets home, so we can all go as a family.
Oh, wow. So you're not even going to see it.
I would love to
see it before you, it sounds like.
Yeah, you probably will. A lot of people are going to see it before me, but we'll see how this weekend goes. I might, you know.
I saw it last night, and I very much enjoyed it.
Good. Well, good, because today's drawing is going to have a little bit of some Rogue One in it. So
we're gonna be talking about why any company would be using MD5 to hash their passwords. I mean, August 2013 is when Yahoo was still using it, which we talked about yesterday. Darren's gonna try to explain this to us, but let's start with our top stories. All right, so say it again, Darren. What was it about humans and machines?
The machines aren't very good at teaching machines. You need a human to kind of chaperone them and kind of make sure that they don't get off track.
Evernote felt the same way. We told you about this yesterday. They announced a change to the privacy policy was going to come in January that would allow limited employees who go through background checks to have limited access to anonymized users' private unencrypted notes. If you encrypted them, they couldn't see them. And the only reason they were going to do it is to monitor machine learning features of Evernote. And everyone hated them. Like people started looking for alternatives to Evernote, canceled subscriptions, said this is awful. So Evernote has decided not to implement the changes to the privacy policy and will instead revise its privacy policy to reinforce privacy protections, and stated no employees will be reading note content as part of this process unless users opt in, which is exactly what I suggested yesterday. If you want to be able to have humans review things to see how the machine learning is going, ask users if they will opt in to help you with it. I'm guessing they're not going to get a lot of participation at this point after this snafu, but at least it's the right thing to do. Don't you think, Darren?
Yeah, I mean, and there's good reason that humans would need to be able to kind of see that data to be able to tweak the machines, especially with machine learning, to get the best desired results. I feel like as consumers, as humans, we don't seem to have too much of a problem when it comes to a bot serving up ads based on the content of our message, and we understand that those bots don't understand the context of said messages either, because they're dumb machines. But in order to get machines to be a little smarter about it, it would be really helpful if we got some humans to kind of coach them and understand what those messages are. And it is a delicate balance, because you don't want to completely turn off your entire customer base by giving them the idea that somehow suddenly you're reading everything, which would be impossible given the vast size of the Evernote user base. No one could read all of that material. So I feel like an opt-in approach is probably a good solution. And we've seen this, with technology, well, for the longest time. I remember seeing this in the 90s with direct access test units, which would allow linemen to, do basically it's a kind of a test equipment thing that would allow you to do things on different phone lines. And one of the functions that it needed was the ability to check to see whether somebody was talking on the phone at the given time. Now, the phone company doesn't want to give all the linemen a dial-in number where they can just, snoop in and listen to any line. So it would come out completely garbled. So you could tell there was a voice, is what it would sound like. So you could tell that it was a human, but you couldn't tell what that message is. So this is something that will continue to go on as we develop that relationship between the man and the machine.
Yeah, the best case scenario was Evernote, and I believe this is what they wanted. They wanted to give a limited set of people working on this project legal protection to look at what the machine learning algorithm was looking at when it made a decision. If they're like, this is a weird decision, what did it see? What were the words that it was seeing? They didn't want to read people's notes, but to be able to see what the machine learning was seeing, they had to give those people the right to see those notes, which were otherwise private. And it is another testament to the ongoing lesson that companies refuse to learn. They think they can all get away with not having to learn it, which is opt-in is not going to get you in trouble the way opt-out will.
I'm just realizing there was a really good example of this. Google did a pretty good job of this with Google Voice initially, when they started to introduce the service where it would play your voicemail, but it would have a speech to text, and it would, you could read along, and often hilarious.
Yes.
But if you hovered over on the mouse, it would give you this little button where it said, "Would you like to send this to Google so that we can help make it better?" And you're like, "Well, it's just a message from Geico, and it doesn't have my account number." Sure.
Mercedes-Benz has launched a pilot of its car-sharing platform called Groove, like groove, but with a C. Maybe it sounds better in German. They're doing it in Munich. And anyone can put the car up for rent. All you have to do is have a good condition car, pretty reasonable condition requirements, and less than 15 years old. So I think I could use my car for one more year if I were in Munich. Renters can filter based on model and other options, as well as the time they'll need to rent the car, because you don't have to make your own car available all the time. The service is similar to Turo, which just launched in the UK, and Easy Car Club, which is available elsewhere in Europe. But the interesting thing is we have seen a lot of car companies getting into things like Zipcar because they like the idea of using their cars and getting people used to using their cars. And hey, maybe if they drive our Zipcar, they'll want to buy this car. And this is not that. This is platform agnostic. Mercedes-Benz is just running a literal car sharing program, which is you can put any car in it as long as it runs, and anybody can rent it. And Mercedes isn't getting anything out of it except for the profits of running the system.
Yeah, it's really interesting. Personally, I would love to hear like Molly Wood's take on this from her old blog, Culture of Ownership, because it is like a, vast different kind of mindset of like looking at a manufacturer, like they're used to selling you something that you own, and that's how they make money. And now the whole context of what is ownership and in a sharing economy, how does that impact them? And so I applaud them. This does feel like a test, and that's good. They should test the waters and kind of see where it leads them. But I would say that would be akin to, say, the RIAA opening up like an MP3 store online in 2000. And that's
can you
awesome.
imagine? Can you imagine that, like an under-armed MP3 store for all member labels to participate in? I mean, it isn't that. It isn't exactly that, because this isn't the car association. This is a particular car company.
Okay, so it'd be like BMG or Sony,
Yeah, but it is somewhat contrary to their own personal interests. But it gets them a lot of data about car use and car ownership and what kind of cars people like to drive and what features they like. And Daryl Etherington at TechCrunch points out they could use it in car sales to say, hey, you want to buy this new Mercedes today? Yeah, maybe the price is a little much for you, but the monthly payments seem a little steep. Guess what? You could sign up for our Groove service, and then you can rent out your car, and that helps alleviate the cost of this car.
Oh man. Also, could you imagine you're in the car and you're like, wow, I really like this. And then the thing pops up on your smartphone. It's like, you want it? Just tap here and just keep driving it. It's yours now.
No, that's the Zipcar model. This Groove couldn't do that. Well, I guess it could. Yeah, no, you're right. If it's a Mercedes, but the fact is, this is not the best way to do that. The best way to do that is a Mercedes car sharing program, right? This is not going to guarantee that you're ever in a current model Mercedes.
Unless, of course, they seed it. They seed their own platform with Mercedes, which they may have.
Well, no, but that's the key. That's the key, is they're not doing that. That is the whole point of the story, and it's hard to wrap your head around. It's like, yes, that's what they should do, but they're not.
That's why I don't understand it, but I still think it's a good thing, because
to
Sony opening their own MP3 store in 2000, where it's like, hey, the sea is changing. Let's get ahead of that.
No, that's it. It's Sony opening an un-DRM'd MP3 store that sells other labels' music as well as their own. Yeah.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Source told Mac Rumors that Apple will sell AirPods in its retail stores starting Monday, December 19th. My guess is there'll be lines and limited availability. But if you ordered an AirPod that wasn't going to be delivered until January, this might be a chance for you to get it earlier. Apple Insider also noticed on Apple's servicing pricing page that a single lost earbud replacement, remember the AirPods aren't connected, they're separate, will cost you $69. The full price of a pair is $159, so I was one of the people who at first said, oh ho, I'll just report 2 of them stolen and pay $140 because they're only $69 a piece to replace. Except that doesn't get you the charging case, which you have to buy separately, and that apparently is like $69 to get the charging case.
Okay, because I was about to say, you just buy 2, get 1 pair half off.
Yeah.
But no, they've thought of that. To be honest, Tom, I really feel like the story behind the delay is actually way more interesting than the product itself, just considering it's Apple.
Yeah. Why is that?
Maybe it's because I'm into manufacturing and e-commerce and all of that nature. But it's just like, dude, you're Apple. Like, how can you not make this work?
Your CEO was the supply chain wizard.
Yeah.
But you know what? He's the CEO now. He can't spend all his time being the supply chain wizard.
Well, I don't know. I would love to hear the backstory of that. And I know, and it's sad because I know I never will.
Oculus just launched a feature for Gear VR called Rooms. Friends can chat, interact with objects in the virtual room, watch videos from Facebook up on a virtual big screen, play games at a virtual table, or even do some multiplayer Gear VR experiences together. Oculus also launched a simple voice chat called Parties that will work in Gear VR. Avatars in the services appear as semi-translucent heads with circular photos pulled from Facebook below them, so you know which semi-translucent head is whom's. Lip and head movements are replicated by the floating heads. This isn't quite the talking avatars that we saw when they showed off things last fall, but it's an avatar chat room in VR.
Hey, sounds cool. I wonder what it's like. Yeah, that's what I thought.
You popped on your Gear VR?
It's just chat roulette.
Yeah. Oh, no. Okay.
Actually, speaking of predictions,
Oculus parties could be chat roulette if you're not careful. Although you can only talk to friends, so it's not like chat roulette where you get random people. Oculus Rooms, on the other hand, is only going to show you the semi-transparent floating head.
got
thankfully.
it. Well, speaking of predictions, I feel like Patrick Beja was just a year too early on his prediction because I think it just came true.
I mean, that'll be the fun prediction results argument next year. Stay tuned for our prediction show on December 30th. We already have recorded it, obviously. And Patrick predicted something about avatars. Listen closely and write in when you listen and tell us if you think the Rooms service actually fits his prediction. Because it kind of does, but it also isn't. I mean, they're avatars, but they're not avatars. Like, they don't really look like you.
You still got time to edit the MP3 and just, throw in a little filler. Anyway.
A side note, Patrick Beja emailed me today asking if he could add another prediction because he's all excited about Super Mario Run.
Okay. So here's the thing that I'm feeling, though. This whole Facebook Live streaming thing integrating with it, that's the part that I'm like, okay, well, that's really interesting because the way the Gear VR works with your phone is that your camera's on the outside. If you're wearing a Gear VR, you can actually pass through your phone's camera to the VR so that you can kind of fumble around the room very awkwardly. But the thing that I'm feeling like a little iffy on is, like, while Facebook Live, awesome. I know some of the people behind it, they're rad, but bringing that to VR, don't bring Meat Space into my VR.
Yeah.
Like, there's
it doesn't have to be live videos. It could be uploaded videos too, like clips and trailers and things.
And I'm just going to say it one more time. Chat roulette.
No, it's not live. There have been whole television shows, like from Amazon, premiered on Facebook. You could watch those instead.
But in VR, no.
Well, on a big screen, it's bigger than the screen most people have in their house.
I don't want my Meat Space in my VR.
But then you and I could watch a show together without having to be in the same city.
That sounds terrible.
All right, I'm not convincing you. The Pew Research Center asked people in the U.S. about fake news in a recent survey. This is the first effort to find out, like, what the actual perception of it is.
Is this a real Pew study or is this a fake Pew study?
This is a real Pew Research Center study, as far as we can tell. Cultural relativism aside, it found around 76% of people did not admit to ever sharing fake news. So most of us don't share these things. 32% said they often come across completely made up political stories, while 26% said they hardly ever or never did. So most of us come across them every so often. There's a third of us come across them all the time, and a third of us or quarter of us that say we never do. Around 64% of the people surveyed say that it causes a great deal of confusion. So most people think that it's confusing that there's all these fake stories out there, but 84% were somewhat or very confident in their own ability to recognize made-up news. So they say, well, it causes confusion, but it causes confusion for other people, not for me. People generally think that the public, the government, and websites are sort of equally responsible for fake news. That it's not one particular thing. So nobody could really agree on who's responsible.
We just need bots that churn out fake news at a rate of 100,000 times more than the existing amount, so that the signal to noise is such that only credible sources can ever be trusted.
Or no credible sources can ever be seen because they're just drowned out by all of it.
Yeah, there you go.
One of the reasons I want to talk about this is I think I can easily be misunderstood by people on all sides of this issue because I want to see evidence about what is happening with this. Is it actually having an effect? Do people believe it? And this is the first attempt I've seen for anyone to actually find out what's going on in people's heads. This is short of saying what effect this stuff has. This doesn't tell me, did it sway your opinion? It doesn't attempt to do any kind of double blind, which would be difficult. But it is at least getting people to say, okay, this is my perception. And it is not the same as a lot of people think. The questions here are, okay, most people say that they're not bothered by it because they can tell. So let's test that. Let's find out if they do get fooled, and let's try to figure out to find out if it actually had an effect or not.
Well, the problem with the study is that you don't get the people that are like, oh no, I've never seen fake news, and yet everything they've ever seen is fake news.
Right, because they think they're confident that they have it. Let's test and find out if that's a common occurrence or not.
Oh my God. I'm just imagining, could you imagine like a documentary of the life of a person who can't tell the difference between spam and real email, fake news and real news?
Yeah. Well, another Jay Martin says almost a quarter of Americans have admitted to sharing fake news. How many of you have shared an Onion article?
Oh my gosh, you're
You've
right.
shared fake news.
Every now
Right?
and then, Shannon will show me, because I'm not on Facebook, but she'll show me like, oh, that story about the abortion plex just popped up again, and like everybody's freaking out and losing their minds in the
That's
comments.
the other thing, is sharing it not because you believe it, but to point it out and go, they're doing this again. They're trying to push this again. So yeah, there's a lot of data that needs to be collected.
At least the Onion does it with style.
And Pew Research Center, I trust. They have good vetted procedures, so I think these numbers are fairly solid. Thanks to all those who participate in our subreddit. You can submit stories and vote on them at dailytechnewsshow.reddit.com. All right. Yesterday and the day before, we talked about Yahoo announcing that 1 billion accounts had been compromised in August 2013. Names, email addresses, etc. were accessed. No financial information was accessed. But the one thing that caught my eye in the whole thing, because otherwise, it's a large hack, but it's not a particularly unusual hack in most respects. Usually when accounts are compromised, which they're compromised all the time at lots of different companies, they get names and email addresses, etc. They don't always get passwords. When they do get passwords, they're usually hashed, which is all, when you see that, you're like, oh, okay, good. So at least there's a speed bump to them getting into them. They are not usually hashed these modern times in MD5. MD5 is a very insecure hash that has been broken many times. Back in the 90s, it was discovered that you could do some combination attacks against them. But then at least you could say, well, it would take a little bit of power to get into these. They're not particularly secure. But by 2006, it was simple to break an MD5 hash. So Darren, explain to me how any company could possibly be using MD5 to hash its passwords in August 2013.
Well, just to clarify so that everybody's on the same page here, we're talking about a one-way math function, something where you can typically, a password or really any data, you can run it through this and you get what they call a hash, which is just, a bunch of gobbledygook, right? And that gobbledygook you'll always get that same way. So every time you type in your password, you're always going to get the same gobbledygook, right? But turning that gobbledygook back into the password, really difficult to do, which is why what happens is you go to log into the site, you type in a password, it would run your password through this function, and then check the gobbledygook that you get that it resulted in to see if it equals the same one that it has in its database. And if they're the same, because there can only be one outcome for any given input data, then these can say, oh, okay, well, those are the same password. And they never actually saw your password, never actually stored your password. They just stored the one-way hash functioning of it.
Yeah.
So
if I can just interject real quick, one way to think about this, if this is still confusing you, is let's say your password is 13, the hash function is 135. If you multiply 13 by 135, you get 1,755. And if you store that and people see 1,755, it will be very difficult for anyone to figure out that that represents the number 13, unless you know that 135 was the number that 13 was multiplied by.
Yes. And so what unfortunately will happen with any given cryptographic hashing function is that over time weaknesses will be found, what are called collisions and other weaknesses, whereby an attacker can either turn that gobbledygook back into its original source, or they can come up with a different source material that will result in the same gobbledygook, and that's scary because it renders the encryption completely useless. And that's what happened with MD5. MD5 is the result of a rework of an older function called MD4, which, hey, there were bugs found in that in the early 90s, and so MD5 came to replace it. And then there were bugs found in MD5 in the early 2000s, but at that time, at the same time, those bugs were like theoretical, and they required supercomputers. So in the early 2000s, MD5 was a popular hashing function for storing passwords because it was built into a lot of different web programming frameworks. This was the same time that unquote Web 2.0 was coming about. So, you know, programmers using Perl and Python and Ruby and PHP could very easily write together a login system and just use MD5 because it's built in, right? So that's why it gained popularity. It wasn't until about 2005 that it became absolutely trivial to break, and the more time goes on, the more kind of ridiculous it becomes. It was just catastrophically broken. Like any home computer can crack this stuff. So it went out of went out of style. Better hashing functions have replaced it. Stuff like bcrypt and scrypt. But MD5 is still kicking around in some really weird ways. It really made a name for itself as a checksum function, basically something that you use to verify that what you downloaded is the same thing that was served up. It's just to check the integrity of a file, make sure it was corrupted in transit. It's not supposed to be used in this day and age for storing passwords. That's not to say that it's inherently bad, but it's just not today's best. So why would it be used in 2013? Either laziness, blatant disregard for security best practices, laziness,
inertia.
I'm trying to think of a good reason. There are no good reasons.
Yeah, inertia is another word for laziness, I suppose. But so it wasn't that they were just trying to use it as a checksum on passwords, which would pretty much imply that they just weren't encrypting the passwords.
Yeah, at this point, like encrypting something with MD5 is equivalent to having password as your password. It's just,
right. I mean, encrypting something with MD5 in 2000 was not the most secure way to do something, but you needed some resources to be able to crack it. So that's why it was built into everything. It's like, well, this isn't going to put too much overhead, and it's fairly secure. That's always the definition of the currently most used hash, right? Which is like, there's an attack against it, but it's a really hard attack. And so it's easier to use this because it doesn't add a lot of resources to the decryption process. But at some point, like you say, 2005, we got to the point where it's like, oh no, this is just like, you could break this on my ThinkPad T42 sitting down there. Like that, it was trivial. At that point, you have to move on to something else. You have to.
And here's the thing, I really want to emphasize that this isn't like, oh, MD5 is bad. It's not a matter of like good hash functions and bad hash functions. It's really just a matter of keeping up with the times, because cryptographic hash functions come and go, and what's secure today is trivial to break tomorrow. As an example, DES, it's still actually part of SSL. Right, and it's what your browser negotiates with the web server when it creates an SSL certificate. It'll say like, or when it creates an HTTPS connection, it'll say like, hey, what ciphers do you speak? Here are the ciphers I speak, and let's choose the best one. And modern browsers rip those out because they're like, well, let's not use DES, but it's still available in the same way that a dot matrix printer is available today. And in the same way that you may see the DMV still using them. It's not that old technology ever dies. Sometimes they have some like staying power and they just kick around even though they're not the best tool for the job. Think about that. Think about the fact that the fax machine was patented in 1905 next time you're asked to fax a document. Technology has a way of sticking around. But today's best, scrypt and bcrypt and PBK DF2, will be trivial in a decade, 2 decades, whatever have you. So it's always just a matter of using the best of the time and then upgrading as time goes on.
To oversimplify, going back to my 13 times 135, at some point you get a computer, all of our computers could do this, that could go through a bunch of different hashes and say, hey, guess what? If we divide all of these by 135, we get a working password. So the encryption must be 135. And at that point, you've figured out, okay, this is a division thing. Now we're going to take 13 and multiply it by 1,265 and multiply it again by 7 million. And that'll be harder to crack. And then eventually computers get to where they can just run through all the possibilities and figure out, oh, well, what they're doing is multiplying it by 2 numbers. I mean, that is way simpler than these hashes are, but that's essentially what's happening is they're figuring out, oh, well, we can use the computer to figure out the math that is causing MD5 to happen and reduce it. And then that doesn't take into account things like collisions that Darren was talking about, which are other ways to divine it. But the point is, computers get more powerful. They can figure out these hashes. You come up with a more difficult hash because you have more powerful computers that can compute those more difficult hashes, and the song goes on forever.
It in fact does, and that's a good thing. We want to see that continue to happen. In fact, your multiplication thing, Tom, throw in some prime numbers, and I think you nailed it. I think
seriously, right?
Yeah. And then quantum computers come around, and it's all completely irrelevant. So that's what we want.
At some point, the technology changes so much you have to change your whole approach. But the key here to bring it all back is everything we're talking about is fine. There's nothing wrong with MD5 being invented. There's nothing wrong with bcrypt being really good right now and eventually becoming crap. The key part is that the companies securing things continually move to the most secure available option.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying that your slide rule can't compute. Your slide rule still functions. It's just not the best tool for the job anymore, for the most part.
That's why it's on my mantle instead of securing my
in your front
passwords. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for that, Darren. I hope that helps people understand a little bit more. And if anybody out there actually knows, like, oh, one thing that you may not have realized is that Yahoo was doing this or whatever, let us know. I would love to know more about this.
One thing that I'd like to just add to this discussion, because I feel like it doesn't it doesn't spread around this idea enough, is that when you're signing up for a web service, you don't know what technology they're using to protect your data on the back end. It's not something that has become part of the culture of disclosing that kind of stuff. And I feel like we need to change that, because if you were told ahead of time, hey, sign up for this new web service, and you were interested in signing up, but then it had a little thing that says, by the way, we store your password in MD5, you'd be like, wow, okay, time to really come up with a throwaway one here.
When you say that, it makes me realize one of the things that Yahoo did do, which was very security advanced, was provide some alternatives to passwords being your protection. Not only two-factor authentication, but using devices to actually log you in so you didn't have to put in a password. It may be that the security team that eventually left because of cooperation by Yahoo with government requests may have been thinking, you know what, why bother? Passwords are all broken anyway. We're going to move past that. And then they never got to the point to make that practical. I'm not saying that makes the decision absolutely right, but that could be some of the thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I just feel like we just need to get to a point where it's like there's a independent body that issues badges or something, where sites can proudly disclaim that they're using the whatever the latest and greatest is, and then continue to keep up with the times, because you can actually rehash someone's password when they log in, so that you're storing a better version of it in databases. And sometimes we'll see data breaches where there's MD5, but only on really old accounts where people haven't logged in a long, long time, but all of the more current active users are using something more secure. And there's no reason why disclosing what algorithm you're using would make the service any less secure. It would actually, if anything, I feel like it would increase the your users' loyalty, literacy, and trust with you.
Yeah, all of that. All right, let's get to our pick of the day from Lon, who recently upgraded his iPhone and needed to stock up on lightning connectors. He says, my favorite item from the mono price order was a teeny tiny micro USB to lightning adapter. Lets you adapt common micro USB cables to Apple's lightning connector. Takes up no space in my bag. I just leave it on one of my short micro USB adapters, and it only cost me $8. So yeah, if you're a dual user, you're using iPhones and Android devices, this can come in pretty handy.
Another dongle.
Yeah. Living that dongle life. Send your picks to feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. You can find more picks at dailytechnewsshow.com/picks. A few messages of the day. First of all, so we got an email, and now I can't find out who. I screwed up. I didn't put the person's name in here, so I'll find it in a second. But it was about the FCC. And we had talked yesterday about how they did not reconfirm one of the Democratic commissioners, and Tom Wheeler is stepping down January 20th, leaving them with only 3. And I said, well, I don't know if there's a rule that says they can't just fill it with all from one party. Well, Only 3 commissioners may be members of the same political party, and none can have a financial interest in any commission-related business. That's U.S. Code 154 of the Federal Communications Commission. So Mark, who was the person who mailed this to us, said, a president can't stack the FCC commissioners with all people from his own party, but he could appoint commissioners from third parties and independents.
Just makes you wonder what just looking at it, not from a political perspective, but just from like a, security kind of like computer security side. It's like, well, what validates that somebody's political affiliation is true?
Well, membership. Basically, are you a member of the Republican Party?
Any party I want.
Right. But that's the way it works. It's actually but it's what they're saying is we only want to appoint 2 people who are Democrats and 2 people who are Republicans. So if you want to be a commissioner, you got to sign up for the party. And then, yes, okay, you could be ultra conservative, sign up for the Democratic Party and try to get named commissioner, but you won't get named because no one will put your name forward, and you won't get confirmed by the Congress. It would be my guess.
Are you telling me that no, Darren, no one's a double agent? That's
no. I'm saying it to be a difficult attack because of other safeguards around it.
Okay. I hope that the quote unquote other safeguards are.
I mean, if you have enough, you got me thinking though. If you've got enough people in Congress who are willing to agree with that, I guess the Democratic Party could just kick you out of the party at that point. Though.
You just go as a sleeper until you're called to do your duty.
I think that's a lot more effort than the benefit you will get from doing that.
Yes, but it sounds so good under my tinfoil hat.
All right,
echoes.
Fair enough.
Really well.
Tyler wrote in and said, a few thoughts to add to the headline conversation regarding Uber using Volvo XC90s in its autonomous car hailing pilot program. I work as the new car delivery coordinator at a high-volume Volvo dealership, and I can see a few reasons to choose the XC90. Volvo is known for safety. Scott mentioned that on the episode, but our CEO, Håkan Samuelsson, has made it our vision that by 2020, no one shall be killed or seriously injured while in a new Volvo. In pursuit of that safety, it has a bunch of semi-autonomous driving features already, so maybe that helps Uber along the way. And he says the Volvo XC90 was Motor Trend's Truck of the Year in 2016, so it's highly rated. There you go. That might be one of the reasons they wanted to pick a Volvo. And then another Jay Martin wrote in and said, hey, Len, Tom, Roger, and Darren, because he was confident I was going to read this today. I am hoping that Facebook is taking the path of flagging sites instead of just stories. It would be better to start with a list of validated sites, so all the stories posted from that site could be considered real news, and any report that a story might be fake is ignored, or those reports might be considered as gaming the system. Then, if a news story comes from a new unverified site with no history, it could be passed to the checkers to see if the site should be considered as a spam site or be verified. I think this would alleviate Justin's worries about stories from established sites being marked as fake. It's a fair point. I do think, though, that we can have, I think you could say, okay, yes, the Wall Street Journal is verified. Anything that comes from the Wall Street Journal goes right through. We know it's not going to be fake because that's not what they're after. And maybe that's how they're going to work it with those different signals that they accept. But what about Motherboard? Mm-hmm. What about the Daily Beast? This
exact discussion has happened with many other technologies where you try to whitelist and blacklist what is good and bad. Look at email servers, for instance. I mean, there's nothing to say that spam can't come from a Gmail address.
Well, and another Jay Martin says Another Jay Martin says I work for an anti-spam company and we've accidentally blocked things that are not spam because we thought they were at the time.
Mm-hmm. And the same attacks that hold true for spam holds true for fake news, which is you create a blog that has legitimate stories until you've accumulated credibility enough to put in fake stories. I mean, this is warfare at its best.
Yeah. It is a difficult problem. Well, thank you, Darren Kitchen, for helping explain difficult problems to us, as always. If people want to find more about these sorts of false flags and hashes and drones and all kinds of things, where would they go?
Oh, if you want to learn how to crack these hashes, we've got fantastic episodes on Hack5. Just go to hak5.org and just, type in hash or cracking or things of that nature, because we have 11 years worth of weekly episodes with Shannon and I. I remember one that was shot in the Outer Banks of North Carolina called Salty Hashes with margaritas, and we explain hash salting.
Right, we didn't even get into the salting of hashes, so you got to go check out that episode now.
Yeah, I mean, grab a margarita and watch away, hak5.org.
Darren, let's look over to what Len has been drawing, because it is Star Wars related, but also related to Yahoo in some strange way.
Yeah, in some strange way it does. I wanted to do something because today is, of course, the release of Rogue One, so I couldn't let anything go without referencing Star Wars. But this is the way that the name of this print is actually called "How the Death Star Was Pwned," and the idiots in the back, those troopers, made the password. You want us to be blown up is what Darth Vader is asking, and of course he's using the word Utini as a swear word.
Dang it, that's my password, Len.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Cursing
I didn't mean.
I thought using Jawa was going to be more secure. It's not in a dictionary.
Unless you're using a Jawa dictionary attack, and then you're screwed.
There you go. And of course the new female lead of Rogue One. I have not seen the movie, so I don't know her name.
Jyn Erso.
Jyn Erso. She is in the corner stealing the Death Star plans for what we inevitably will be.
Which apparently are printed on legal paper.
Exactly. It's just that's how bad it was over there, tech-wise, for the Empire. Legal paper, bad passwords.
Tech never dies. Yeah, old tech never dies.
Listen, you do not want to be without this print, folks. Go to lenperaltastore.com and check it out. You can get a digital version or a version printed out and sent to you. You may notice if you're watching the video that I have a version of the link that he drew.
Oh, yeah.
Len's art is good. You want to get it. lenperaltastore.com.
Right on the front page.
Thanks to everybody who supports this show. dailytechnewsshow.com/support explains all the different ways you can do it. Big thanks to all our patrons, including Philip Carr, Mark LaViolette, and Daniel Gall. Props to Doug Thompson, who raised his pledge. If you're not supporting the show through patreon.com/DTNS, you need to give these people your thanks, because they're the ones paying to make sure we're able to do it. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Our email address is feedback@dailytechnewsshow.com. We're live Monday through Friday, 4:30 p.m. Eastern at alphageekradio.com and diamondclub.tv. And our website is dailytechnewsshow.com. Back on Monday with Veronica Belmont. Talk to you then.
This show is part of the Frog Pants Network. Get more at frogpants.com.
Diamond Club hopes you have enjoyed this program.
Nice. Good show.
Yeah, that was really fun.
Thanks for doing that, Darren.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anytime we try to explain cryptography, I'm just like, oh, this could go awry, but that didn't go awry.
No, I think it went really well. We'll see if anybody writes in with their head spinning, but I think we did a good job. We did not make a hash of it.
Hey.
Sorry if that was a little salty for you.
Look what's trending on Showbot. Houdini!
Right. So at the top of the list, we got MD5, Don't Jive.
Mm-hmm.
A room with a virtual view. You've got your meat space in my VR. Then there's another variation of the same thing. Keep your meat space out of my VR.
Yeah, basically variations on a theme here.
I like my news like I like my reality. Fake. Data secure today, gone tomorrow. Evernote's Control Z's. Don't Evernote do that again.
I like that too.
Got a Groove on. The Onion is fake news with style. Hashing out cryptography. Mercedes Groove. The hash for password is Utanini. Baby got hack. I like MD5 Don't Jive.
MD5 Don't Jive. Looks like it's the top one.
What do you think, Darren?
Houdini!
I figured you might make a plea for that.
No, it's okay. MD5 Don't Jive is good.
My only problem with naming the show that is, does it give away the joke?
What? MD5 Don't Jive?
Yeah, no, Utini.
Oh, no. Also, they didn't even spell Utini right.
All right, MD5 Don't Jive it is.
No, that's spelled right. Yeah, but anyway. Yeah.
Yeah, but then we're going to get into, people are going to be like, no, that's spelled right. Yes, it is. And then
Let's check the original script. Well, what if it's not in the original script? What if that was like
what if it's an ad lib?
That's some ad lib action.
Ad lib by the Jawa.
Whoa! What if it was ADR ad lib? Dude.
Yeah, the Jawas speak. I don't know what language that is. What it's based on? Like Ewoks.
What if it's referring to Francesco Utini, the Italian composer and conductor, who was mostly active in Sweden?
Ewoks speak a mishmash of Tibetan. I think that's what the Ewoks speak is Tibetan.
Oh, really?
So
based on Tibetan.
Yeah, it's Tibetan. So I don't know what the Jawas speak, but
let me see.
Movie Clips has posted up a live, this is Facebook Live poll of Rogue One versus The Force Awakens.
Rogue One wins.
No.
So basically on the live stream, you either thumbs up for Rogue One or heart for Force Awakens, and it automatically updates in the live stream what the count is.
So the new Star Wars, the next one's coming out this summer, correct?
No, I think 8 is supposed to come out in December.
Next December.
Okay. Yeah. I think they've just shifted to December at this point. Because, they were supposed to have Force Awakens was going to be in May, and then they shifted it. The Rogue One was going to be in May, and then they shifted it. So
is it like every other year is going to be a proper movie, and then on the odd years we're going to get this this Ewok jazz? I'm looking forward to seeing this and comparing it to the Ewok movie. In fact, I'm going to rewatch the Ewok movie before I go and see this.
So
just so I'm prepped.
Ewokese is largely based on Chalmuk, a Mongolian nomadic tribal dialect.
Ewokese or Jawais?
Ewokese.
Oh, we were talking about Jawa.
Someone said Tibetan, so I was just going through it.
That's what I
he was
thought
saying. Jawa was based on Tibetan, right?
Oh no, I was saying Ewok.
Oh, you
were.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
But was any Ewokese actually memorable? Like, can you say one word in Ewokese?
Yeah. He says, "Gotcha."
Ah, that's Klingon.
Wambo Nikuja, chub chub.
Chub chub. There was there is an Ewok phrase.
Jawese is based on several African languages, particularly Zulu.
Oh,
Zulu.
All right.
What is Jabba the Hutt's language? What's that?
Huttese. He's Huttese.
Yes, but what is it based on?
It's based on Chuck E. Cheese. Huttese.
I know. The only he can't translate the word solo, so he says something like "Bola Solo."
Well, not everything has a translation because that's a proper name.
Right.
Yeah.
That's like saying I can't translate Peralta, so I say
Peralta. Like my name Yahweh. I mean, if you were to translate it literally, it would just be one you expect great things from. It's just easier just to say my name than to do a process.
I'm actually just going to call you one who I expect great things from now on.
That's fine. You might be disappointed.
It's a quantifiable name. I like it.
My parents were rudely awakened sometime around high school. Huttese unknown. So I guess the slug people.
BioCow has an interesting question here. He says, if you have time, could you speak quickly on how knowing the hash of a password, and I think what he means is knowing that something is MD5, doesn't make it less secure. He was under the other impression.
So it makes it less secure if I'm saying, so Hack5 uses SHA-1 to protect all your forum passwords, which, by the way, we don't.
Thank goodness.
Because that's just inviting trouble, because what I'm saying is I'm using a really old algorithm that's hella broken, just like MD5. But by saying I use bcrypt, that's not hurting me in any way. It's not like, I feel like like the mindset that like, oh, we shouldn't share what algorithm you're using stems from the whole idea of security through obscurity. It shouldn't matter if you're using a secure algorithm, then it's the algorithm that's securing you, not knowing of it and being able to.
Is it possible to figure out what algorithm people are using very, very easily?
Yeah, you can profile it and see like, oh, there's tools that will profile a hash and be able to tell you with varying percentages of accuracy, like what algorithm it thinks it is, certain signatures, and it's like it doesn't make my machine any less secure if I say like, oh, I'm using BitLocker to encrypt the hard drive. It's that's just like that's like, oh, well, you don't know where the lock on my door is. It's like, well, you're eventually going to find the lock. It's the lock I'm hoping.
I'm not going to tell you whether I'm using Schlage or August.
Yeah. No, if anything, I really want to get us to a point where we're emphasizing that we're using the best and have it like just be part of, even if it's just buried in the privacy policy, because at least then, if it's public, some website somewhere can catalog all of these, and then you can look them up and see, if it's done with like a 5-star rating, it's like, oh, and I would like to see a big player get out there and say like, hey, we use XYZ. I would like to see a Google say, hey, we use, PBK DF2.
Well, and a lot of them will. A lot of them will tell you. Like they will have it listed somewhere, or they'll admit it.
What scares me,
but it's not easy to find.
Yeah, what scares me is if you go to a company and you're like, hey, what hashing algorithm do you? A very specific question, not what do you do to secure my data, and you get some canned response. But if you say, what's hashing algorithm do you use for the passwords? If they can't tell you, then that scares me, because that makes me think like, oh no, they either A, went with whatever the default in programming language is, which is a lot of times MD5, which is how we end up in this mess, or B, worse, they rolled their own. Yeah, and that's scary.
Well, and BioKiss says, I guess that makes sense. As long as you were using the latest and greatest, then even if they know, it doesn't matter. And the opposite is true too. If you're not using the latest and greatest, not telling them won't slow them down.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're not telling me, then I'm going to assume the worst. But if
you're going to try MD5, you're going to try SHA-1, and then one of them's going to work.
Yeah, you take a small sampling. You take like one hash, and you just run it through all of the common weak ones, and then you see what spits out.
And that takes no time at all. That's not a speed bump.
Yeah. No, that isn't. So you shouldn't just rely on that obscurity. And yet, it's like talking about what kind of underwear you wear. It's not something that people are like used to doing. It's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I feel like we need to change the conversation and get the companies to kind of like, you should let us know what's under the hood just a little.
Be proud if you got just your hands on now.
Right? You should be.
I was going to say, before you went to the underwear, which is a much better metaphor because it will stick in people's heads, I was going to say it's like open source. Right? People used to have the same fear about open source. Oh, if I show my source code, they'll all be able to figure out how to crack into my software.
Well, guess what? The source code for all of these encryption technologies is open. Yeah. If they were closed, then we wouldn't be using them because it wouldn't be
You couldn't guarantee their security.
Yeah. You wouldn't have them be independently audited by, cryptographers around the world. We use things like bcrypt and scrypt because they are open. Nobody wants a black box solution here, especially for this.
Bahaukas says he doesn't know what underwear he wears because his wife buys it. I don't know what underwear I wear because I buy different brands. I'm not brand loyal.
Wait, you don't have uniformity across the entire underwear drawer?
No. I mean, they're all uniform in style.
Okay,
they're boxers, if you must know.
At least,
but they're not all from the same maker.
They're not all the same exact model of the same exact brand of the same exact
style
color. Of the same exact color.
Yeah.
What?
I have to make decisions every morning. Am I going to go plaid or solid?
Whoa, dude, that's just crazy pants right there.
Crazy underpants.
I'm sorry. I'm just going to put it out there like all one brand, all one color, all one model, exactly the same, like uniform. It's like, get this. Here's the reasoning behind it. if every pair of your socks is exactly identical, then when you reach into your sock drawer, you can just grab 2 socks independently. You never have to mate them when you're doing laundry, and you will have assurance that
I follow that sock rule. All my socks are the same brand, Masiliomo or I can't remember, and they're all black. But underpants, I don't care. I don't choose them. I just grab the one. I actually rotate them. I grab the one at the front. And then when I clean them, I put them in the back.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wait, what? Oh, anyway, that makes sense. There was a time in my life where I had 2 competing pairs of socks where I wasn't sure if the crew cuts were going to make the cut or if it was going to be the other ones. And so, but thankfully it was, you reach in twice and you had a 50-50 shot of getting a matching pair.
Right.
And if you didn't get a matching pair, reach one more time and you have 100% chance of getting a matching pair.
Right. And you just have to reject one of the
ones
you have in your head.
Yeah. But with each additional style you throw in the mix, now you're just reaching for every. Now
I have running socks, but I keep them separate from the regular socks so they never get mixed up, and they're entirely different colors too.
If you just switched to smart wool across the board, you wouldn't have this issue.
I'm probably revealing way too much about my obsessive compulsiveness, but the other thing I do is I also rotate my shirts. When I pull them out of the laundry, I put the shirts that are clean at the back, so that I always know which shirts aren't getting worn as much because they're at the front of the.
Oh, that's smart.
Yeah.
But if you do it right, every shirt is identical, and then you just always.
I know. I don't go that far. Shirts. I've thought about it. I've actually thought about doing that.
I did. I started. That was my 2016 New Year's resolution, and I stuck to it for the entire year. And I've been wearing the same exact shirt for a year.
No, you've had different shirts than that one.
But the undershirt. This.
Oh, the undershirt. Okay.
Yeah, this. Who makes Patagonia? This Patagonia shirt is.
Patagonia makes Patagonia, I think.
They do, and it's good stuff. So you just get 8 of those, and you always have the same exact shirt.
So, or you could just get shirts you like with similar designs, just different enough so you don't feel like you're wearing the same shirt.
But you don't have to choose between them because you always like whatever is coming up.
Yeah. Well,
you just go with gray and it goes with everything. I'm not talking about the shirt that goes over it, not the button down. That's gotta, those are the new unique snowflakes in the wardrobe.
But see, that's the Steve Jobs thing, is he went with the turtleneck, all black turtlenecks all the time.
Well, he was a cartoon character. I mean, you never saw Doug wear something different.
Well, it costs too much to animate a different outfit.
Right.
No, you can't animate a different. That's like Snoopy not wearing Snoopy outfit.
He doesn't wear an outfit. He's a dog. He's naked.
He wears.
Occasionally wears a scarf when he's flying us up with Camel.
He doesn't wear anything.
He's naked.
That's like him changing.
I'm sorry, that's the Red Baron who wears the scarf, not Snoopy.
Yeah. Don't confuse the two.
Sometimes he wears sunglasses when he's Joe.
But that's what Joe Cool. But he wears doesn't he wear a shirt on that too, or no? No, just the sunglasses.
You have a shirt.
Maybe a college sweatshirt, possibly.
Yes,
it's like
I've
Archie
seen with the pennant and the college sweatshirt.
Yeah. Archie wears the same thing in every comic, does he not?
I don't know. I haven't read Archie in since grade school.
Well, it's all rebooted in dark now.
Yeah.
Everything is rebooted.
I'm not kidding.
No,
that's not a joke.
I'm sorry. I really thought you were making social.
No, they really did. And there's a TV show based on the rebooted Dark Archie that's coming to.
It's going to be called Archibald.
I wonder why I'm under a rock.
Yeah.
I don't want your dark reboot.
They're going to call it the Green Archie.
It's called Riverdale. That's the TV series.
I do not want your dark reboot. The dark reboot of Hack 5. Hacking in hoodies with ski masks and gloves.
Or it's just like you guys are always against hacking. That's the dark reboot of Hack 5.
No, I think it would just be really kitschy. I think we would have Leet speak everywhere. It would.
You would have to be in a basement, and you would have to be surrounded by a lot of perhaps a converted warehouse.
You'll be telling people how DRM is great and you should close source everything.
You mean Dr. M? By the way, my favorite character of Buzzland.
I miss Dr. M.
Dr. M strikes
again.
Now
I kind of want to go see Rogue One.
Yeah, let's go. Do that. Strap on your VR.
Draw Darth Vader all hour. Yeah.
I'll get in the virtual living room with you right now.
I don't know if I'm going to do it.
Oh my gosh. Would you watch a movie in VR? Like
No.
No.
like go to the theater to put on some goggles and like.
I wouldn't go to
Just
the theater
like
to
Tom
do
has
that.
never been to Disneyland, I've never tried True VR.
Yeah, it's
Never
the
had
same
an
thing.
Oculus.
Wow.
I would never. Why would I need virtual reality to look at a 2-dimensional image?
Because it wouldn't be 2-dimensional anymore.
The whole movie, you'd be immersed into the movie.
Yeah, you'd be like in it.
But you'd be sitting.
Yeah,
But
you could be the Jawa could be walking around you, going, "Oh, Dini!"
Yeah, but it would be weird though, because you'd be sitting and you know that.
Well, no, you'd get a little office chair, and everybody would be having to like sit 4 feet apart so you can spin around.
They make you stand on a treadmill, and then you would just have to walk everywhere.
The only problem with that I could see is that it would have to be on rails, because otherwise you could
You'd
be
be
lost
running into
somewhere
other
in the
people.
movie and
Yeah.
feel like
You know, but at
the
that
action's
point-
way over there.
But
Like
at that point,
the
would it
tour
still-
group has made its way to the Death Star, and you're like still on Endor, and you're like, "Where is everyone?"
But that raises a good question. I mean, that doesn't.
Sorry, the
Does
force
that make
move.
it still a movie at that point? Because you're not being led by the nose, as it were, based on.
Well,
the
actually,
camera.
I would say the same thing holds true to many of these new. Like, I'm playing Watch Dogs 2 because the Wi-Fi Pineapple was featured in a video game. What? And it is not for the apathetic gamer. The whole open world gaming is great if you have the fortitude for it. But if you're apathetic like myself, you'll find yourself just wandering around the virtual streets of San Francisco, not doing at all, because you're just like, I don't have to complete the objective. The storyline doesn't move forward if I don't do anything, and so therefore I'm just driving around.
You've
It's just-
basically found the space between life and death in that one moment that you can stretch out forever. I think Doctor Who
The game of
explored that
purgatory.
concept.
All right, I'm gonna go
concept of
figure out if I'm gonna go see Rogue One tonight.
Utini.
See if one of my kids wants to go with me.
I want an Utini for Christmas.
All right, we're all gonna go down to the bar and get some utinis.
All right.
See y'all
See you later.